Well, welcome everybody to this video series on No Place Left FAQ.
All right, so the question is, who is qualified to share the gospel? To start out the answer, I would most undoubtedly point to Jesus commanding both in Matthew 28:18-20, Mark 16, John 20, Luke 24:14, or Luke 24:44-48, that we are his witnesses and that we are commanded in his authority to go and make disciples. And a part of going and making disciples, being sent as the Father sent Jesus, is sharing the gospel with all creation, like it talks about in Mark, and Acts 1:8, being his witnesses. And we jump over to 2 Corinthians 5, and it talks about that we are ambassadors and that God is literally, through us, calling out to people be reconciled to God. So anybody who is in Christ, that's a new creation, is an ambassador, qualified and commanded to share the gospel.
How about you, Dave? What do you think?
I have a very simple phrase, Chuck, that I use to help people kind of understand this concept, and I just say it simply this way: God saved you with someone else in mind. I learned it from a gentleman in North Carolina named B.G. Brown, and it's just the idea that if we weren't called to share the gospel, then why are we still here? Why not just go ahead and go to heaven? But we look at it, and Paul tells us, like Chuck or Carter mentioned in 2 Corinthians 5, that we're a new creation, and he's entrusted us with the message of reconciliation. And Paul says, therefore, because we're entrusted with that message of reconciliation, he says that we are ambassadors, and that our message that we proclaim is that he who knew no sin became sin, that we might become the righteousness of God. So if Paul's showing that if anyone's in Christ, he's been entrusted with the message of reconciliation, and that automatically makes us an ambassador. I just see it as a calling on every Christian's life.
Great. I think about the woman at the well, where Jesus has this dialogue with her. Who knows how long it lasted? It couldn't have been long, maybe an hour at the most. And she immediately goes into the village and says, could this be the Messiah? And then later in that passage in John 4, they say, we no longer believe because of your testimony. These are the people in the village. But we believe because we ourselves have heard. But she was a witness. And I think the demoniac is another good example of how quickly a person can take the gospel to their relational network and be very effective. So the qualifications are, you just want to share the good news.
Thank you so much for watching the Frequently Asked Questions. If you have any more questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Also, you can visit the website at www.noplaceleft.net. Look forward to seeing you again as we continue to answer some of the frequently asked questions.